When our core wounds meet the physical world, it offers us the opportunity to heal from the trauma and the emotional wear and tear we have endured in this lifetime. How many core wounds are there to heal? In this podcast series, we will talk about them all, healing the emotional core wounding, including the mother wound, the primal wound, so we can walk in our medicine to be the healers that we all are. Join podcast host, confidence coach Susan Axelrod with her very special guest, Cornelia Stephanie. This podcast is one for the ages, living beyond the core wounds. Hello, friends. This important conversation about core wounding has been phenomenal for me. It has reminded me that the basis of my work in the coaching that I do as a confidence coach started out from my own journey of wanting to come back into my own control. And I had even forgotten that right on my website, it says in several places, 100% in your control. Confident life, confidence coaching, 100% in your control. How can things be 100% in your control when you stop being a victim and feeling victimized, blaming other people and waiting for someone else to save me? Also, when you stop being a savior, constantly being outside of yourself, working to save everyone else around you, sometimes or often at your own expense. So this has been part of my journey that has been very significant for me. We're going to talk about this, as we always do, in candid, real-time impact with our friend, Cornelia Stephanie. Hello, Cornelia. Welcome to the podcast. Very good to see you today for this part 2 conversation.
One of my top favorite collaborators in the New Earth. Thank you so much for being on this journey together with me, for sponsoring this series here, and also for being the #1 sponsor for the KS Media Group app. Susan, you and I met, I think it was around about 3 years ago, maybe more at this time. I would actually need to sit down and track it. But you definitely have come into my life with the knowing that we are here to build together and to grow together and to learn with each other and help others the way that we are. And so what I love so much about you is how you show up, how you're willing to always go deeper and look at, your own shit.
That's awesome and true. Mm-hmm.
Right? How you're so willing to do that. And it's just like, you really take ownership of everything. You really are a model of what it looks like to be in your integrity, in your remembering who it is that you are, in your intention. Now, that doesn't mean when we're like this that we have it all figured out or that we are the know-it-alls of the world. It's actually the opposite of it. It just gives me the chills saying that. And I've got on a flannel shirt today. What it is that we're willing to be the students. We're willing to unlearn all the things that we had been taught by our conditioning, by society, by our teachers, by our religions, all the things. But we're willing to unlearn everything so that we can relearn everything from a place of authenticity, from a place of integrity, value system, what's important to us. Do no harm to another person, do no harm to ourselves, do no harm. And to really be living and acting from the original divine blueprint that we came here to live, which is our birthright. So I said a lot of things. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Cornelia, we reveal here because, as you said, we are willing to be the students.
Yeah.
And I agree. People say to me and to you all the time, you're the real deal. And so I can tell our listeners and our viewers that Cornelia knows this about me in part because I work with Cornelia. Coaches need coaches too. And so, and therapists, by the way, I have a wonderful long term therapist I've been working on and off with for many years who knows me very well. But I really do appreciate what you said. Thank you so much. And I just really want to let people know that what you're saying comes from a very deep place because of the fact that we work together. So, for your information, it's been 4 or more years now. Time has
Oh,
passed quickly that we have come into each other's lives and are intended to be on this part of our journey together. I am continuing to gain so much from these conversations that we're having. Every episode that we record, I listen to not for my own business development, which I also teach, listen to what you put out there, but also when I'm walking the dog, I'm listening to what we're saying and what we're learning and how we're continuing to grow as well. Finally, Cornelia, even today or yesterday, I was listening to the last episode that we did, which was part 1 of the core wound of victim savior. And I thought to myself, maybe we're just doing this for each other to grow. Maybe it's not intended, for world impact and, to create world confidence or world ascension or world peace. But even if that's the case, surely I am benefiting. So I do want to thank you so much. So Cornelia, today we're continuing this conversation about victim savior. And last time, I take my prolific notes, and we had some languaging that I wanted to bring us back to. This is happening to me. The victim wound is waiting for others to fix me or fix things for me. And then the other part, the savior, as I mentioned in my little introduction, is when I feel that I need to save everyone else. Oh, this just came up. Oh, I can think of like 3 times. Today is Thursday or whatever day it is. 3 times already this week in 3 coaching conversations where it was just came right at me. The women talked about, constantly doing things for others, which is kind of a savior mode. So where are we today with all of this, Cornelia? Where would you like to start?
well, first of all, let me ask you the question. Where does, in the conversation, and I apologize for uh, not knowing the meaning of this word, but it just came up. But you know the meaning of it because you were born and raised in this country. You are American, but I was born and raised in Germany, so pretty much self-taught myself how to speak this language and even read and write and all of that. Because by the time I graduated high school in Germany, and so and when I came to this country, I was 13. So, but the point that I'm making, what I wanted to know, the word martyr, what is the meaning of that? The word the meaning behind that?
Yeah, when someone is a martyr, or when someone is martyred, they're killed or they die on behalf of a cause, which other people then attribute to them. That's what being a martyr is. Now, often it has a negative connotation when someone is, martyred. The Christ could be considered a martyr, but only in the good way. But otherwise used, that sometimes people die on behalf of a cause which other people take up in their name.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a bad way. It's a fundamentalist type way. Why do you ask?
The reason why I was asking is because we're talking about the core wound of victim, say to victim savior to a martyr. Making a martyr, like, does the victim or the savior then, are they made a martyr, or are they making, putting someone in that position? Because we're talking about living beyond the core wounds. And on this earthly experience that we incarnated into, we came here to remember who it is that we are. We came here to be complete with forgetting who it is that we are. We came here to be complete with that. We came here to evolve the human consciousness and move into our original being, our divine birthright. So prior to, if you look at all the cycles of how many times of what's been happening on earth, say even for the last 2000 years, say even for the last 5000 years, say even for the last 10,000 years, we have been harming each other. We've been causing war. We have not been remembering who it is that we are. We have been, causing a war, not living in peace, not honoring the earth, not honoring each other. We have been, robbing Peter to pay Paul, if you will. These kinds of things. We've been doing all these things. We have not been putting the unity, the love, and the kindness, and the peace, and the honoring of yourself with the other, because once you do it for yourself, you are now in the equation, and then you will bring that relationship to everything that you relate with. The missing piece was always, I want to say, I know this is going to come up again in a further conversation, but the missing piece was always, source, was always God in the equation, because in religious conversations and all of the times that we've been taught in our religion is to look outside of ourselves for the source, for God, for the Christ. Look outside of ourselves, or Jesus is coming back, right? And okay, that implies again Jesus is coming back to do what? To save
us. Right.
To be the savior again. The savior has already come. The savior is already here, because the savior is you. You are here to save yourself from whatever it is that you are perceiving in today's reality. But we are advancing the human condition. We are moving beyond the storylines, the karmic storylines of our past. And we are taking no prisoners. We are taking no victims. We do not need to be saved, because we can right here, right now, in this moment.
I mean, I just want to say, first of all, I looked up the dictionary definition of martyr.
Oh, yeah.
And it says a person who is killed because of their religious or other beliefs.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or to kill someone because of their beliefs.
Okay.
It's a little bit different than I said, but by extrapolation, our conversation is more familiar of the victim martyr, exactly in the way that, that we martyr ourselves or somebody feels martyred. Now, I do want to say that regarding, you are here to save yourself. You can save yourself instead of wait to be saved by someone else, or, whatever, the Messiah or whatever. And then you said, once you save yourself, you said you're in the equation. I call that being in the new, that ocean, once you're in it, and then the energy goes out from you, and then what's drawn into you is more of that. And I cannot say how much I have experienced this.
Right.
In my old type A
Mm-hmm.
personality, I lived with anxiety. Anxiety kind of turned into depression. I lived in overwhelm. In the last episode, I talked about, for me, how I became victim to, in quotation marks, time. I didn't have enough time. I was a victim. I didn't have enough time. I was so busy all the time. And I said, because I listened to our episode, and I said, the choices that I made, for example, I said, I don't have time to go to the gym. Well, again, those were choices that I made about the time that I did have. So I am an example of exactly what you're talking about. As a reminder, Cornelia already started our show by saying, just because we're in this world does not mean that we're perfect. As you've heard me say a million times, just because I'm the confidence coach doesn't mean I'm always supremely confident. 100% of the time, it's not like that. But when you experience the saving of yourself, the empowerment, the ascension, you called it last time, the empowered creator, then that's what ascension is. You rise from there. I am an example of this, Cornelia.
And so, us as empowered creators living beyond the core wounds, we now have the responsibility, the integrity, and the inner knowing that whatever is unfolding in the world, that we've got this. That we've got this, because remember, we're not victims. We've got this. And in my book, Peace, the Flip Side to Anger, one of the reasons, there's many reasons why I wrote that book, but from a multidimensional perspective. But one of the reasons I wrote that book is because I want us to take responsibility for our emotional energy and not recreate the same thing from the past that we've been doing. Because as a human race, why are we still shooting each other? Why are we still harming each other? Why is there still domestic violence? Why? This is all emotion. It's all emotion. Why are we still living like that? Why as a human race? So it is, again, making all the unconscious behaviors conscious. And that is one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Peace, the Flip Side to Anger, because I want world peace. I want your grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren to be able to, create in this world from a place of being, not having to look over your shoulder, of not being able to go to the store or go where you're going to go, because you never know when somebody's going to go off or whatever, with all the violence that's happening. So all the violence that's happening, there's a lot of victims out there that are being affected by this, right? With all the violence that's out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I actually recently attended what's called an active attack training. It was a 3-hour training, and they call active attacks an attack. I think where more than 4 people die, or some kind of dynamic like that. And they clearly, I mean, it was so, what you just said was exactly true. That's like on the big scale, like that level of victimization turned, terrorist, basically. And then we bring it all the way, and that exists, and we have to be real about that. And then we bring it all the way. Oh, I just lost Cornelia. I will see if she comes back. We bring it all the way back into us, and then that is what's in our control. That's what's in our control, Cornelia. I was just saying, when we bring it all the way back into us. And so
exactly, because when we bring it all the way back into us, then, because that's really where we're talking about. We're not, and you mentioned this earlier, we don't have, when I talk about us being the empowered creator, we don't have any power over other people or other things. We just don't. We just don't know what people are going to do. We can't abuse and take our power and try to overpower someone, because that's not the integrity of the new earth, of who it is that we are.
That was an important distinction. So when we talk about empower creators of ourselves,
right?
Yes.
Empowered creators of ourselves, because that's the only person. Even if you're going into a relationship with someone, you don't have any power over that person to try to change that person or whatever. Now, Does that happen in relationships? Yes, it does. People always try to, manipulate other people. But that, again, that is on an unconscious level, but we're talking about the conscious empowered creator and living beyond the core wounds of our past. And here in this new earth where we're living, where we're talking about, this is how we do it here. And here we're conscious, we respect ourselves and each other, and we know how to communicate boundaries. But the point I'm making is that you yourself, no matter what's happening in the world out there, you are never powerless.
Yeah, I mean, I have one of the things I wrote in the last, can you see my little orange highlight there?
Yeah, I can.
That was from last time. It says, I'm not powerless here.
Yeah, I'm not powerless here.
I'm not powerless here. And we told them last time, we said, write it down. I have it. Yeah, I'm not powerless here.
I'm not powerless here. And that's an important piece to know. And the other thing we said in the last video, and this is also important, is there is a time, like for you to like, let's just look at your entire life and how many times in your entire life that you felt victimized and that you actually were a victim, and you really want to release the victim consciousness out of your being, and you want to be completely done with it. Or something happened, you got triggered, and you feel like you're in a situation right now that you can't, where you really feel victim, where you really feel like a victim. I'm not talking about, a crime.
Violence.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the violence, but where you really feel victim. Maybe it's a financial situation. Maybe it is, you have to move or something like that, and you just feel like, I don't have the resources right now. I feel like a victim. Whatever it is, the point that I'm making is that sometimes to really dive into what it really feels like, you as a human being, to be completely sitting in your inner victim. And woe is me. We talked about that, right? Last time.
Yeah.
Woe is me, to really just be in that energy and really feel, because again, the way that we release the core wounds is we feel them and we release them and we let them go. And then we have the new mantra, I'm not powerless here, right? One of my mantras that I have used over the years, countless of times, when I would come in contact with victim energy, where I felt like I don't have a choice here. I don't, where I felt powerless. That's a good word to say. Where I felt powerless. And that's this. And you guys can write this down, because you can use it for yourself, and you can also make it your own. But basically, what I would say, I claim back all of my power, all that I lost, all that I gave away, in any time, space, and dimension. I claim it all back to me now, as it was, as it is, and as it shall be. So that is from the place that you're going to be living and acting from, because unconsciously we've given our power away here, we've given our power away here, we've given our power away here. All the places that you've left your energy, that you've given it away in any time, space, or dimension. And a lot of times I'll stand in my living room and I'll make these movements like this. I'm calling it all back to me now. I'm calling it all back to me. I'm bringing it all back to me now, because I did give away my power, when I didn't say something when I should have. Stuff like that, right?
Oh my God, I have fucking chills. Excuse my French. Oh, I just dropped an F-bomb on my public podcast. Okay. So first of all, Cornelia, this physical, for our listeners, what Cornelia did when she said was, I do this, she put her hand out in front of her and she grabbed as if to pull in, and then to her other hand, and she grabbed as if to pull in, and grabbed as if to pull in, and grabbed as if to pull in. And that's what she was saying was, I claim it back. So she's grabbing to pull in. And this is Qigong, Cornelia. This is one of the physical forms of Qigong that, I practice. So you can reach your hand out in front of you. You can grab as if to pull in. And of course, we can also do the opposite, which is take what's in us, put your hand close to your heart in a tight fist, and you can let it slowly go out in front of you, and you can open it up to release as well. But we'll talk about releasing in another episode, because I want to say this. I claim back all of my power, all I lost, all I gave in any time, space, or dimension. I claim it all back now, as it was, as it is, as it shall be. So I hope that our listeners and our viewers will play this episode back and understand the opportunity that you have to claim back your power. Cornelia, in the green room, we talked about, you said, I'm going to ask you, when were you feeling victim?
Yeah.
And so it just came up in right now when you talked about this. You said, when in your life were you victimized? And then I wrote, either you said or I wrote in quotation marks, out of your control, right? When you felt out of control, when things felt out of your control. And I'm like, I'm looking at my watch, Cornelia. We don't have enough time to talk about all the times that I felt victimized. But I do want to say the final straw of my victimization, which probably came from the ocean I grew up in, even though I grew up in a very loving ocean, as you know, and also definitely came from my ancestral legacy of persecution of Jews, being a Jew myself. But the final phase of my victimization resulted in an emotional breakdown for me when I was in my late 30s. And it was from there till now that I have been on what I call my journey to the light, journey to enlightenment. I've learned from you, ascension, my own rise, whereby I was constantly complaining. I used to say this, complaining is my birthright. I used to say that. And then AKA whining, perhaps it could be considered. And then for sure, blaming my husband, blaming, my mother or, anyone else outside of me. And that's the sign of a victim, right?
That is the sign of a victim. And that is actually, again, you mentioned this earlier, and that is this happening to me, or this is happening to me? Right. And basically, you blaming someone is, again, you being the victim and you recreating it over and over and over.
Oh my God, I have total chills because I did live that way. And of course, it had nothing to do with my husband or my mother or my brother, or, or my boss, anybody else. It was really this.
Yes, we have to remember that in the spirit of the truth, we are all one. And that, everything that you are giving your power away to, even by saying, a blame energy of blaming or judgment or whatever, putting it onto the other person, that again leaves you out of the equation of, you're not living and acting from a place of empowerment and integrity, source-like energy. Because would God make the blame? Would source make the blame? Yeah, that's the thing. And the other thing is nothing is happening to you. It is happening for you. It's happening for you so that we can see it, It's happening for you so that you can see it, so that you can realize, so that you can wake up and self-realize, oh, this is what I used to do to hide my power from myself.
Let me tell you, it's time for us to end. We're going to have to do a third episode on this. I wasn't sure, but now I realize we are, because we have to talk about passive aggressive behavior. We have to talk about taking responsibility for ourselves. We have a lot more to talk about. So, friends, stay with us. We are going to offer you a part 3 episode on this core wound, which just, victim, it just feels like things are totally out of our control. So, Cornelia, very quickly, how can people contact you if they want to really address this with you?
Any of the core wounds that we've talked about in the past, if you want to work with me on releasing the core wounds and releasing the karmic storylines, you can message me on my phone. You can text me 360-941-5783, or give me a phone call. Give me a phone call. Do we still do this here on planet Earth?
Yes.
So I invite you to do that. Or you can also go to my website, corneliastephanie.com. There's definitely ways and how you can get in contact with me. Social media, the KS Media Group app. The fastest way really is to call me and say,
Yeah,
Cornelia.
it's so funny. Every time you say this, I do think to myself, who's going to pick up the phone and call you? And the answer is I did, after we were introduced. And also, I'm the same. I am a person who picks up the phone, and I do encourage people to get outside of their comfort zone, get this help that's being offered to you, work with Cornelia in this process, and you will feel better. All right, Cornelia, we got to run. I'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.